Hey everyone, Accumulated Knowledge here with Noah Walker for Team Cardhoarder. Today we are doing a video series of Legacy with Grixis Delver against Death and Taxes, playing against fellow Team Cardhoarder member Chris Anderson. And this is our first match. Okay, so our opening hand is just pretty bad, regardless of what match we're playing against. We don't really want to have all that many lands just in play with this deck at any point in time. So having a 5 land opening hand is just not very good. So I think this is a pretty easy mulligan. So I'm just going to mulligan. Okay, this 6 is much better. We have a turn 1 force in case they're playing some sort of combo deck, a daze, or turn 0 force rather, a daze, and some cantrips to play, and a threat. So this is an easy keep. Bolt. Okay. So I think I'd maybe scribe this bolt to the bottom if I was playing in the blind. This is actually really tough. So it's great if they're playing any sort of fair deck, like the Mirror or something, or like Elves or any Deathrite Shaman deck. But it's really bad if they're playing some sort of combo deck. But our hand already hedges really well against a combo, so maybe it's fine to keep this on top. So yeah, for mulligan to 6, this opening hand is about as good as we could ask for. So I'm pretty fine keeping it. Plains Aether Vial. So Aether Vial is something that we just have to counter because it makes all of our other spells much worse. Or our counter spells, I mean, sorry. So it makes all of our counter spells essentially do nothing. And we have 2 in our opening hand. So Force of Will is a pretty easy one to use on this Aether Vial. All right. We got a bolt on top, so we're going to draw that. So I think turn 1, we're just going to start off with Volcanic Island and the Ponder. Look for some more lands for the Young Powermancer and for maybe a threat or so, aside from it. Like a Delver would not be bad. All right. So there's no lands in this top 3, which is kind of unfortunate. I just think can't really keep them. Doesn't really help us get anywhere with those spells. So I think, yes, I would like to shuffle. All right. Deathrite Shaman is a pretty fine pickup, assuming that we get a black source at some point in the near future. Wasteland Thalia. Okay, so we're actually pretty lucky that we get to counter this Thalia as opposed to just getting basically wastelanded out of this game. And it's probably the best use that we're going to get out of that daze too. So pretty good that he jammed a spell into this. Okay, so here, I almost don't want to play the Volcanic Island just because it's going to get wastelanded. But if we don't play the Volk, then there's not a whole lot we can do. Like as far as, advancing our board state. This is really tough. So we don't have a land, which sucks. Another land, aside from the Volk, I mean. A black source would be super ideal, because if we could just land a Deathrite Shaman, then there would basically be no, I wouldn't really be worried about getting wastelanded here. But that's not something that we can do. So if we play the Volk and he plays a creature, we might be able to bolt it, but he could just wasteland us before, like he could float a red, he can move phases, and then we won't be able to bolt whatever creature he decides to play. So I think that maybe our best option here is to just hold the Volcanic Island, the next turn play it, and use the bolt. May seem a little unorthodox to not play a land, but it's the only land we have, and it will just get wastelanded if we play it. So I think I'm just going to pass the turn here. It does suck that we can't really represent a counterspell other than Force of Will by making this play. Like, he basically gets free range of playing around days here. Okay, so I think that's why he jammed Thalia. He didn't have another land. Okay, Dismember is an okay draw. I almost sort of feel like we have to play a land here, just because we'd rather have this Valk get wastelanded than a black source if we draw it. And we really need a black source if we're going to win this game anyways. So the really unfortunate part here is that we can't like pay 6 life and dismember this Dahlia or something. We kind of just have to get beaten down by it for now. Stoneforge. That is pretty horrible for us. He's just going to fetch up a Batterskull likely. Yeah, he got Batterskull. So really we need a land here or this game is probably out of reach. That's a Ponder that we can't cast because he has Talia in play. So yeah, we're just going to pass the turn here. So luckily we have a Gurmag Angler, so him putting into play the Batterskull isn't exactly game over unless he draws a 3rd land here, then he could wasteland us and put the Batterskull into play with Stoneforge. So I guess we're not technically, dead here, but we're really far behind, and drawing a land would help a lot. And if we don't draw a land in the next couple of turns, then this game is just definitely out of reach. Yeah, puts in the Batterskull. Nothing we can do about it. Gonna stick. Probe. All right. Well, might as well cast this probe. 2 life and a colorless. All right, so his hand is, bring up the chat. His hand is Plow, Dahlia, Revoker, X2, and a Wisp. All right. Force. Not what we were looking for. So yeah, we're on a 2-turn clock if we don't draw land. So yeah, he's just decided to wasteland us because basically means that no matter what we draw, we can't really cast anything. He can just keep up the pressure. Oh, because he drew a land. So that makes a lot of sense. They would wasteland us. So we know his whole hand. His hand is the Sword Splash Shares, Dahlia, 2 Phyrexian Revokers, and the Flicker Wisp. So he's probably just going to play Revoker and name something like Deathrite Shaman. Try to make this game even further out of our reach. So yeah, this matchup is generally a pretty poor one just because they have a lot of mana denial in the 4 Wastelands and the 4 Rashad imports. You've got the Dahlias, which is just naturally pretty good against our deck. All right, he decided to name a Gruesome Encore with his Revoker just for the Rubbins because he knows that we're basically dead. Okay, so we could have Force of Willed the Revoker, and we maybe should have. But I figured the only way that we're winning this game anyways is if we draw the black source for the Gurmag. So yeah, here we're dead, so I'm just going to concede this game. And I'm going to go on to sideboarding. So in this matchup, we don't have a whole lot that's insane to bring in, which is kind of unfortunate because our main deck isn't exactly insane against them. But we do have a couple good ones. So the ones that we want are Fork Bolt's great, Dark Blast is great, just at dealing with all their X1s. Engineering Explosive kills a good amount of the creatures because a lot of them cost 1 or 2, so we definitely want to bring that in. And Pithing Needle is pretty great also, just at shutting off Mother of Runes or shutting off Aether Vial, something like that. It helps a lot. Okay, definitely want Ancient Grudge just to deal with the Batterskull and various other stuff like that package. Okay, and the cards that I'm not sure whether we want are Sulfuric Vortex and Cabal Therapy. Cabal Therapy is really good against Stoneforge Mystic, but I think that the 2 in the main deck are enough and might not even keep all of those in, so I think the 3rd one is fine staying in the board. The Sulfuric Vortex, it's really good against Batterskull and it's really good against Muzashit, but it's really bad against Wasteland and Rashad Import because it costs 3. So that's the only card that I'm not positive that we want to bring in. So honestly, I think I'm just going to keep it in the board for now. And so what we take out here on the play, I think, are all these Force of Wolves, just because he plays 4 Aether Vials and Force doesn't do anything against Aether Vial. And we're keeping the Dazes on the play just because it's one of our best, one of our best cards, just in almost any matchup. And even, against cards like Cavern of Souls and Aether Vial, it's a little worse, but I think we have to keep in some. He can't play around it always. He'll still jam the turn 1 Aether Vial. And if we can get it with a Daze, then we're really far ahead. And I think I'm also just going to take out the Spell Pierce because his deck mostly plays creatures, so it's not going to do a whole lot. It might counter like a Swords to Plowshares on occasion, or like a Sword or Umazaz Jit if he has to cast it. But I don't think that a fringe card like that is worth keeping in a matchup like this. I'm fine keeping in some Cabal Therapies, as I said, because they're so good against Stoneforge Mystic. And a card that I consider bringing in a matchup like this is Baleful Strix, just because it cycles and trades for any of his guys. It actually might be worth it. It's just pretty bad against Mom. So I think I'm fine submitting this for now. All right, going into game 2, we get to be on the play this time, which will help a lot. All right, so this hand has no sources. If it had a single, blue land, I think that this hand would be a snap keep because we have the old Jitaxian Probe Cabal Therapy combo, which is insane against almost any deck. You can just tear apart whatever the best cards are in their hand. It's basically like playing a discard spell while knowing their whole hand. Something that makes you choose a card is just, as good as it gets. It's like playing a Thoughtseize without taking 2. That hits every copy of that card. But I think that because this hand doesn't have a blue source, that it's a little too risky to keep. We do have the Probe as an extra draw, but I think that a 6 is better than this. So I'm going to mulligan. All right, this is a pretty unimpressive 6, but actually has a lot of lands, which are really good in a matchup like this. We need to just keep playing all of our lands and just have a lot of lands back up in case he plays something like Wasteland, just killing off all our lands. That's a lot of his deck's game plan is mana denial. So the more lands that we have actually is much better. So here, if we're definitely going to keep this hand, and if the Scry is something really good that we want to keep, then I would honestly consider not cracking the Polluted Delta on turn 1 to Ponder, even though that's generally what I would do here. I think it's much more important to just keep a threat on top if we scry one. So I'm going to keep this. And as we do, we see a Delver. I think that that's really important to keep on top right here. So I'm just going to do that. So we may have to just fetch and daze anyways if he plays something like an Aether Vial on turn 1 or a Mom even. But I think that it's worth it to save the Ponder just because we're not sure exactly what we're looking for. We have a good idea, threats help to kill him. So yeah, this is looking all right for sure. Definitely much better than our last hand against a deck like Death and Taxes, just because it has a lot more lands, and that's what we need to play. Okay, so it's pretty fortunate that he didn't cast anything on the first turn, because I really wanted to be able to set up this Delver. And I actually think that this turn I'm going to cast the Delver and the Ponder. And I'm actually going to crack both of my fetch lines first, just because I feel like we're going to want to keep on top with the Ponder. Just to put the Delver. So generally I would maybe save one of the fetch lands, cast the Ponder to keep one of the spells that I wanted, and then crack the fetch to shuffle afterwards. But I think here it's really important to get the pressure on quickly. So I'm just going to crack both, cast the Ponder, and cast the Delver. So I'm going to cast it the Valk leading up to C in case we draw Deathrite Shaman, because I actually think that we'd rather have Delver here than Deathrite. And this top 3 sucks, so we're just going to shuffle that. All right, another land. Another land is not too great here, seeing as our hand doesn't really do anything. So drawing something like a Brainstorm would be perfect here. I imagine he has a Swords to Plowshares here at end of turn. Oh, no, it doesn't even have the turn 1 plow. Okay, so that's pretty fortunate for us. And his second land is a Wasteland. Oh, okay, so he does have the plow. He just didn't want it to get dazed. Okay, so that was a really tight play from him. Not using the Wasteland first to play around days and then plowing. We really just need some threats. Okay, yeah, Deathray Shaman is a great draw. It's one of the less good threats in a matchup like this, just because he doesn't play very many instants or sorceries for Deathray Shaman to eat, but it's still a great card, and it sets us up to have mana for most of this game, which judging by our hand already wouldn't have been too big of a problem, but definitely sets us up well. So I'm just hoping that Rest in Peace is his play this turn. So Rest in Peace is actually just really good against the Deathrite Shaman and pretty good against the Gurmag Anglers. So I think that it is worth it to cast the Daze on this, because otherwise our Deathrite Shaman isn't doing very much. If we ever draw a Gurmag Angler, we can't cast it. So even though I wanted to save the Daze for something more threatening, like a creature or something, I think it's fine to just use it right there. And we didn't crack his fetch to thin our deck just because we play Brainstorm. Unfortunately, drew another land. There's not much we can do about that. So we're just gonna replay the Underground Sea and pass turn here. Consider attacking for one, but I think that it's just better to use this while we can and eat the plow. Actually, let me think about that a little more. So it's definitely generally better to eat the plow just because the clock is better. But this might be the only turn that we can actually just attack with the Deathrite Shaman, and we don't necessarily want to eat our own instants or sorceries from our graveyard just because we play Gurmag Angler. So it's possible that it is better to attack here for one. And I think I'm actually just going to do that. I think that is like a very small play right there, attacking for one or eating the Swords to Plowshares, just because he's at so much life where the clock isn't like, a 10-turn clock as opposed to an 11-turn clock isn't exactly the biggest of deals. And actually looks like he's shutting off our death right now with the Revoker. Luckily, this card says non-land, or we might have had to sacrifice our Flooded Strand in response to him casting it. But yeah, just going to name Deathrite. Makes a lot of sense. So this next turn, we're definitely going to use the Wasteland on his Rishadan Port and just offer this trade up for the Revoker, just because Deathrite's not doing too much otherwise. So actually, I'm just going to cast the Brainstorm before we decide whether or not we want to attack, because we could just draw, something that kills. That kills the Revoker, so that we could use the Deathrite. Huh. So here I want to shuffle away a waste and one of the fetch lands. And I'm actually going to grab the second Underground Sea here, just so that we can cast for Mag this turn. First, I'm going to go, though, decide whether or not we want to use this Wasteland. So his hand is Wisp, Revoker, Canopy. I'm going to write that down. Wisp, Revoker, Canopy. All right. And I'm actually just going to fire off the second probe here for life in case we draw Cabal Therapy, because we just want to get both of the Flicker Wisps. All right, this is fine. Just going to attack in with this Deathrite Shaman. start getting the beats going. So our life total is definitely, slightly relevant here, having paid all this life. But I think it's fine. We're starting to put on some pressure with the Gurmag Angler. And yeah, we're just going to pass the turn. So his hand is 2 Wisps, a Revoker, Rise Canopy, drew Mother of Runes, which is potentially really bad for us. So this turn we basically need to draw, one of our removal spells. Ideally, like something like Dark Blast would be insane here because we could just cast it every single turn, or even something just like Forked Bolt, get rid of Mom, and one of these Revokers. All right, so we drew another land, which is actually really unfortunate. Because that just means that Mom is going to be able to shut down Gurmag for the rest of this game. And there's not all too much we can do about it. So here I'm just going to play a fetch and attack with both of our creatures. Actually, maybe I'm not going to attack with the Deathrite Shaman, but I'm definitely going to get in there with the Gurmag Angler. And the reason I'm not going to attack with the Deathrite is because our life total is actually pretty low. And I think that it's more valuable here to use the Deathrite as a blocker than an attacker. Which sounds weird because we're trying to get aggressive with the Gurmag Angler. But we're only really trying to get aggressive with the Gurmag Angler because this is the only turn that we can attack with it through Mother of Runes. So later on, he'll probably make some blocks on the Gurmag, and then if we draw one of our instant speed removal spells, that way we can get rid of the Mother of Runes. But other than that, it's pretty hard to beat this Mom. So Sand is 2 Flicker Wisps and a card we don't know about, which is the Stoneforge Mystic that he drew. Some pretty hot ones in a row. Mother of Runes and Stoneforge. Pretty great. So actually now, drawing a removal spell wouldn't even be very helpful. We want like a Brainstorm into like Cabal Therapy and a removal spell. That's our best bet at winning this game. So he just went with the safe route and got Umezawa Shite, which makes sense, kind of. So he's going to swing in with his Revoker. I think I want to block the Revoker in case we draw a removal spell. Not really interested in taking very much more damage. And I think he'd rather have Mom active than use it. All right, another land. So we don't even really have, good incentive to attack with the Gurmag Angler here. Because if we do, he just blocks and uses the Mom. So I think that it's better for me to just pass turn here and keep these lands in hand just in case we draw a Brainstorm. This game's not necessarily over yet, but I think that we're very much so unfavored currently. I think that he's just going to put the Stoneforge Mystic into play, move it on to something, and then, put the Umezawa Shite into play, move it on to something with the Stoneforge Mystic, just to play around any possible counterspell in our hand, move it on to something, and then start, getting in there. So hopefully we draw something that we can use. Brainstorm would be pretty ideal. Looks like he's considering on our upkeep if he wants to use the Stoneforge now to put in the Jit, which he decided against. All right, we drew Days, which is a pretty awful draw this stage in the game. But I don't think there's all too much that we can do about it. Attacking is pretty useless. He just blocks with the Mother of Runes, then uses it, or blocks with any creature and then uses it. Like blocks with Phyrexian Revoker, uses it. So yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. But we actually might be able to get him get him scared. If he just equips the Jit, attacks, and then uses Mom. Okay, so he's going with a slower route, just casting the Flicker Wisps on Gurmag. Getting in there for 3 likely. Yeah. And just keeping the Mom back. All right. Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt's actually a pretty okay draw. Might be time to attack with the Gurmag Angler. Make him block with Mom and use it. So we can get this Bolt off. I don't really love this play, but if we don't attack, then he can just use the second Flicker Wisp that he has on our Gurmag Angler. So yeah, he makes the snap block of the Mom. Gives it Pro Black. Huh. So yeah, we have to Lightning Bolt this Mother of Runes right now. Because it's the only shot that we have for Bolt to actually do anything. Because once he untaps with the Mother of Runes, anything we try to Bolt, he can just give protection from red. So that's not very good for us, this whole transaction. So yeah, this matchup generally isn't fantastic, as it seems to have showed out in these couple of games. His cards just line up really well against ours. You know, he has the Swords to Plowshares, he has the Wastelands, he has the Rashadan Port, he has Stoneforge Mystic, Phyrexian Invoker. Really heavy mana denial. We don't have any basic lands in our deck. Jit is very good. Okay, so another Stoneforge Mystic. Okay, I think that it was a mistake for me to just let it resolve. Because if I daze it, then he has to decide whether or not he wants to pay 1 and let it resolve, or if he wants to equip the Jit, or, you know, let's say the card that we don't know about. So right now we know he has Flicker Wisp and one other card in his hand. If the card that we don't know about is already the Batterskull, then he could put it into play with Stoneforge. But if we daze, then he couldn't do something like that. So I think that it was actually a pretty big mistake to not use the daze on the Stoneforge. Yeah, so he ended up grabbing the Batterskull. So I'm actually curious why he didn't grab the Batterskull the first time, just because he had the Mother of Runes to protect the Stoneforge. So I'm just not really sure what he was worried about necessarily. But we seem to be pretty far behind regardless, so not a whole lot we can do. So yeah, the second daze is picked up. Just not really hot draws this game. We drew pretty much, worst possible draws on some turns. I don't want to make it seem like, horrible or anything, but we just drew a lot of lands. And then we got the Brainstorm, which was pretty fortunate, into Gurmag Angler and a Probe, which was pretty good. But then we just drew like 3 more lands in 2 dazes, which is just not really, the cards we need. We got a Bolt in between there somewhere, which was pretty good, but not everything we were looking for. So this game didn't really pan out too well, and I think that he's just going to put in the Batterskull and attack us for lethal. So here I maybe should have played the other Volcanic Island, just because I think that we might have to use both of the dazes when he casts the Flicker Wisp. But actually he just has lethal, even with that being the case. So I'm just going to cast one of the dazes on this, and then return a land for the second one. So the fact that we're threatening Lightning Bolt here might make him not want to attack with the rest of his board. Yeah, so he actually is just respecting Lightning Bolt and just swinging with the Flicker Wisp because he feels so far ahead that, he doesn't even need to risk losing, the Germ and then the Flicker Wisp, and then us possibly getting a better board state than him. But yeah, we're just going to die to the Flicker Wisp flying over, so I'm just going to concede this game. All right, that's the match. So yeah, I think this is a pretty unfavorable matchup. As shown in this game, he didn't even cast Athalia, which I think is one of the harder cards for us. But it didn't really matter. His cards just lined up really well against ours. He brought in Rest in Peace Afterboard, which is really good against our Deathray Shamans and our Gurmags. We had to daze it early. We never really got any action too early in the game, so we were never able to, snowball any sort of advantage. So basically, we were playing from behind the entire game, which Delver is okay at doing generally, but in a matchup where all of their cards are so effective against you, it's pretty hard to get back into a game after you're that far behind. So yeah, that was match 1.